Why are high heels seen to be so attractive to men? Stick around, let's chat about it today on this episode of Christian Date Coach. Let's hit it. What's up, everybody? My name is Dr. Phoenix Singh, and I want to warmly welcome you to this episode of Christian Date Coach, the channel where we discuss the research literature based on attraction, dating, as well as relationships from a Christian perspective. Now, whether you're a believer or not, I want to warmly welcome you again to the channel. Please do, if you enjoy the content we put out, hit that subscribe button. It's a little red button that's going to be to the lower right of my face right now. At the same time, we would love for you to hit that bell so you get notifications every time that we post new original content. Please do feel free to share this video with your friends as well as with anybody in your congregation who you think may enjoy it. And you can follow me via the social media accounts below. So let's jump right in. Today we're going to be discussing high heels. So you guys know what a high heel is. It's a particular type of shoe. Usually when we think about high heels, we think about stilettos, which have kind of a very thin stem in terms of the heel, and then quite a pronounced arch with regards to bringing the foot up and bringing the heel up. And these are really seen as very sexualized shoes. They're seen as sexual symbols almost, even if you just take the shoe alone. And everybody has heard of individuals who have sexual fetishes, specifically men who have sexual fetishes for high heels. So where on earth did these things come from? What is the deal in terms of them being perceived as quite attractive when women wear them? Let's go ahead and chat a little bit about that. I think it's quite a fascinating topic. So the first thing that I want you to know is that they were developed actually back and made quite popular back in the 1500s by Catherine de Medici. In terms of what they do, the function of a high-heeled shoe, essentially what it does is that it artificially creates a posture which is anatomically identical to chimpanzees and estrus. And estrus is like being in heat, right? So ready to mate. And really it does this in several different ways, right? Just because of the nature of the shoe and it rising up the heel, it makes you stand on your tiptoes as a woman. And when you stand on your tiptoes, a few things happen, all right? So first, the back has almost an unnatural arch. The buttocks is pressed out, and also the breasts are pushed forward. And this essentially, combined with kind of a signature wobble, some people will call it, in terms of the swaying of the hips, it pronounces the swaying of the hips. And these things collectively provide indicators of interest to men that you essentially are in heat, right? This is the idea. Now, human beings do not, or human females do not go into estrus, right? We do not have that as Homo sapiens like other primates do, such as chimpanzees. So that's not really the case, but if we want to use that kind of animal proxy in terms of, a species that's very similar to us genetically, like chimpanzees, we can get a sense at least with regards to why this is happening, why men are kind of interested in this, right? Now, I do have my notes right here, so I hope you'll excuse me for looking at them because this is pretty involved, all right? So the second thing is that basically what the high heels do is that they adjust a woman's bodily proportions to those that kind of meet the contemporary Western ideal. Now, obviously, Homo sapiens have been around for a very long time, and these ideals have changed over time socially. However, evolutionarily speaking, biologically speaking, there's certain things that are basically triggers, and these aren't just things that happen emotionally, and especially because men have higher rates of testosterone relative to women, we're much more visual creatures in terms of the triggers that basically get us interested, right? It's not that men are these, misogynist pigs or anything like this who only care about looks. The amount of testosterone that we have essentially makes us focus on this. Just like if you take a look at a woman's ovulatory cycle, what you find is that when a woman has more estrogen in her body, what happens is that she is more interested in short-term mating strategies based off the morphological characteristics of men. In other words, how hot is the guy, basically, right? You will care more about that when you have higher levels of testosterone. So this all makes sense, right? So men aren't these pigs or anything like this. This is just a consequence of testosterone levels. And because of that, a woman wearing high heels and providing these biological indicators of interest, even though they're proxies, because they're not real, right? We're using the shoe to be able to exaggerate those things. But there's certain things that happen to bodily proportions that essentially really exaggerate this sense of sexual interest in men, okay? So, for example, what it does is that it basically creates a leg length that is 5% longer than the norm for a person's height. So what I usually say is that if a woman wants to identify the length of a heel that would make her quote-unquote most attractive to men, relatively speaking, if you just take, a meter stick or a yardstick or whatever, right, and basically started from, so can I get my shoe up here? I don't know, right, from the bottom of your shoe, right, and basically measure it up to the point where the hips and the pubis meet, right, so a kind of the gusset area of, let's say, a pair of sweatpants, right? And you kind of measure that and you multiply it by 5%. And you do that in inches, right? Then what's going to happen is you're going to have identified the ideal height for you in terms of the length of a heel that you should be wearing. And it's interesting because basically there is kind of this parabolic curve in terms of as you approach that 5% length in terms of the heel, it is perceived as kind of being more and more attractive. But then at the same time, you've also got a situation like, let's say, Lady Gaga, who's a very popular pop star right now. She wears very, very high heels. I'm sure that everybody has seen, these sorts of things where the heels are just so incredibly long. But that is not usually seen as attractive unless you are just extremely tall in the first place, such that that would correspond with that 5% number, all right? So that's the reason that I say that there's a parabolic distribution there, a parabolic curve in terms of how much physical attractiveness is increased relative to the size of the heel itself, okay? So for example, the average leg length of a 5'5" woman, right, is 30 inches. And because of that, the average woman should wear 1.5-inch heels, right? Some people say, well, I like 3-inch heels. It's fine to like that. There's no problem whatsoever. And if it makes you feel more confident in these things, then God bless, right? All I'm talking about is what the literature says, and the literature says that the average woman is 5'5", who's got 30 inches between the bottom of the foot and the gusset area of pants, should be wearing 1.5-inch heels if she wants to maximize her physical attractiveness. That is what the literature says, okay? Now, also, extending leg length by 15% or longer than the norm is particularly unattractive. So when it comes to that distribution, right, so 5% is ideal. If you go 15% or more, beyond that length, right, which is idiographic, it's the level of the individual, right? So once you get that measurement, if you are wearing if you are wearing high heels where the length of the heel is longer than 15% of that length, you're in trouble. It's actually going to make you unattractive, okay? And these are just things to be able to know. And of course, it is something where wearing high heels, a woman who's interested in wearing high heels really should practice. There is kind of a signature sway that goes along with wearing high heels, and essentially go onto YouTube, you can type in, problems wearing high heels or problems walking with high heels. And essentially, especially if the heel is too long, essentially people can really struggle and have quite an odd walk, right? And just like for example, if I was interested in kind of going out with somebody, right, the likelihood that I should wear glasses is lower, even though I do, right? And the likelihood that I should wear something like braces is also lower, because essentially wearing glasses or wearing braces, right, these are proxies for having issues in terms of your physical development, right? So for example, wearing glasses suggests that there's something wrong with my eyes, and wearing braces suggests that there was some issue in terms of bone development. And these are important things to take into consideration because, again, this is rapid screening, guys, okay? So guys, you should know, women, it's 13 milliseconds it takes a woman to be able to judge you physically, right? And so you basically want to put your best foot forward in terms of your fashion, in terms of your grooming, etc. And so this is one of the reasons why, trust me on this one, right? You can be very attractive with glasses, you can be very attractive with braces. At the end of the day, you guys know me, if you watch enough videos on this channel, what I care about is loading the dice, All right. What I care about is maximizing the likelihood that you're going to come across as being attractive. And remember that attraction, dating, and relationships are three very different, very discrete stages of this process, right, of the courtship process. And so what I'm talking about here is attraction. I'm not talking about dating, I'm not talking about relationships, right? I'm talking about that initial attraction process, okay? Now the final thing that I want to chat about is, so theoretically speaking, right, there's a theory that's been put out there to describe, evolutionarily speaking, why it is that high heels kind of work in terms of increasing attraction. The name of the theory is the Handicap Hypothesis. And the idea here basically is that high heels are difficult to walk in, right? They're a challenge to be able to walk in. Can I say that I've ever given it a shot? I cannot. Maybe I should, just to be able to, confirm the theory, right? But all of the women that I've interviewed over the years, not only for the development of this channel, but just friends, etc., right? Seeing them walk in heels, some of them you can tell they're struggling a little bit, and so it's natural to be like, is it hard to walk in those kinds of heels? And they'll be like, oh, it's brutal, right? I mean, it requires good joints, tremendous coordination, right? And so the idea here behind a handicap hypothesis is that, if you see, for example, the concept of somebody with like a broken wing, like a bird with a broken wing, etc., right? It triggers some sort of kind of predatory sense in men, right? Like a dominance sense in men, such that they're more attractive. And this is, again, just a hypothesis that's put out there, but it does make some evolutionary sense at the same time, right? This is one of the reasons why, in terms of, like, people will talk about having a limp wrist. So if women, for example, have anything with kind of a limp wrist, right? Or, for example, smoking, right? When women smoke, usually they'll smoke and they'll kind of display the wrist, right, when they're holding the cigarette. And you see men do this rarely, right? Men usually, when they smoke, they don't display the wrist. Women display the wrist. It's a sexual signaling thing. I'll make a different video on that. But what happens basically is that anything in terms of a limp wrist, this direction or this direction, same thing in terms of a woman kind of displaying the nape of her neck, right? Anything like that, right, is perceived to be very attractive by men. And essentially, you also have to keep in mind that just in terms of getting attention, period, high heels make a very distinctive sound. There's a distinctive clomping noise of the heel that draws attention, and it's kind of a novel sound. That's not something that essentially you would see regular shoes making, and because of that, it draws men in as well. So there's a variety of different reasons why high heels quote-unquote work, but it's not something where all high heels are created equal when you think about things like length, etc. All right, y'all, thank you so much for joining me for this brief video. It's a blessing to have you here as always. If you're interested in one-on-one date coaching with me or group-based date coaching, you can feel free to check out the different packages that I offer down here via the link below, and also you can find my contact details there if you're interested in having me come and speak to your congregation or at your place of worship. It would be wonderful to be able to do so. I always enjoy doing that. In the meanwhile, don't forget to get out there, take chances, and be your best self, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you enjoyed that episode and you'd like to see more original content, then please do click on one of the links right here. I hope to see you in the next one.